Good afternoon. I want to welcome you to College of DuPage. Thank you for coming here today. As you can see, we've got LinkedIn for Beginners. That's our session today. So I'm making the grand assumption that you're all beginners in LinkedIn or have the very early starts of perhaps a profile. So we're going to walk through that today. We're going to walk through how to set up a profile. I'm going to give you what are the 5 first steps that you need in order to set up your profile, really get you going on LinkedIn. My name is Steve Gustis. I'm the manager of career services at College of DuPage. And we're real happy that you're here today. Thanks for coming out on this frigid, cold day. Did everyone get a handout? When either I pass it out or you checked in at the table and has a handout? Okay. I like to give out my PowerPoints because this is all the things I'm going to be going through today for you to be able to take notes next to it if that's helpful. And then also we will leave a little bit of time for questions at the end. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of get us started and get going right now. So I told you a little bit about myself. I work in the Career Services office here at College of DuPage. We offer a number of services to the community, as well as our students, as well as alumni. So not just this workshop, and we have a series of other workshops coming up as well that will be leading up to our job fair, career fair, on Saturday, February 2nd. Okay? So many of you probably registered on the website. Thanks for doing that. I want to tell you about my office staff and what we do. Career Services at College of DuPage assists students, community members, alumni, anyone else almost who lives in District 502, which is a College of DuPage district. Amy, could you close one of those doors back there, please? Thank you. With any type of job search process, okay? We can assist you with resume development. We can assist you with networking. We can work with you on mock interviewing. Doing all those things, helping you brush up on your skills. We offer workshops like this to everyone as well. So those are just some of the things we do in our office. We also work with students to gain internships. Help them search out internships in the community, local businesses. So we have an assistant manager of career services. That's Sarah Kirby. You may have seen her out at the desk. She was helping you get checked in. We also have 2 career specialists, Audrey Walker right now, and then we are filling that. We have a second open position that we're filling right now. Pete Dieben he's out at the desk as well. He's our employer development specialist, working with local employers in the community, trying to bring positions to College of DuPage and work with employers on their hiring needs. And finally, our administrative assistant who makes all this stuff happen, the logistical pieces of this, Janine Paul. So let's get into LinkedIn, okay? What is LinkedIn? Here's Wikipedia's definition, okay? It's a business-oriented social networking site founded in December 2002, launched in 2003. It's mainly used for professional networking, okay? I'm assuming we've all heard of LinkedIn, right? Okay. We've all heard of Facebook. We've all heard of Twitter. Okay, I'm not going to go into the other ones. Those are kind of the 3 big ones. We're not going to do too much talking about the Facebook and Twitter today, but LinkedIn, as you can see, has gained almost 200 million people registered on its site. That's a huge leap. In 2010, they only had 65 million users. So they've jumped up quite a bit in the last 2.5, 3 years. And as you can see, it spans more than 200 countries and territories. A new member joins LinkedIn approximately every second, and about half the members are outside of the U.S. And then one of the greatest things about LinkedIn, especially as a resource, is that members from all Fortune 500 companies are LinkedIn members. Often it's the CEO, as well as the CFO, as well as the hiring manager, as well as the salesperson. So there's a lot of information contained within LinkedIn, and we'll talk just that much today about how to get information out of LinkedIn, okay? But more importantly, we're going to be talking about what your profile looks like and your beginner profile. Sure. Yeah, there should be some more out on the table.
Great, thank you.
So some of the ways that you want to use LinkedIn is to research your connections. You know what, let's just do a show of hands. How many people in here have a LinkedIn account already? Okay, maybe about half of you. Okay, so half of you probably have, I'm going to say, more than one connection, right? Okay, good. All right, so you know what connections are. For those of you who aren't on LinkedIn yet, just like on Facebook, they're friends, or if you're on Twitter, they're followers, right? On LinkedIn, we call them connections. So you want to research your connections in order to find out perhaps about open positions at another company. You want to research the actual companies. Many, many companies have LinkedIn pages. College of DuPage has a LinkedIn page or a LinkedIn group, and you can follow the LinkedIn group for College of DuPage for things happening at COD, or if you want to get employed at Target in the upper management, in human resources, you're going to want to follow the Target LinkedIn page, or Navistar over in Lisle. Another way to use LinkedIn is to see who's working at companies who might be in your network. So your network is defined as your connections, as well as people who are connected to your connections. So they may not be a first connection for you. In LinkedIn, it'll show up as a second connection. And we'll talk about that as we go forward as well. And then finally, recruiters and companies are posting positions on LinkedIn Jobs. And there's a tab for that on the home page that we'll get into. So the thing about LinkedIn, okay, you know already it's a professional networking site. You want to put your professional self out there. The thing about LinkedIn is that you want to publicize things about yourself. This is your opportunity to brag about yourself. Okay, so it's not like you don't want to put everything out there about yourself, right? We've all heard that already. But you want to put your professional self out there. LinkedIn is the perfect place to do it. So looking at it more simplified, it's a social networking site for professionals. It's the best social media site to seek connections to employers. Okay, it's one of those sites where you can go on and try to request a connection of someone who you don't know, and it's okay. We'll talk about how to do that today too. We want you to think of LinkedIn as a virtual resume. Every person, every LinkedIn presenter you talk to is going to tell you something different. Some will say, well, you don't want it just to be your resume, and I would agree with that. You don't want to just upload your resume to your LinkedIn profile, right? Because you don't want it just to be your resume. You want to give people an opportunity to really look for you, seek you out, and know who you are, know a little bit more about you. So, but you do want to think about it as your virtual resume, as a very basis or foundation of place to start your profile. Finally, this is where employers and recruiters are. They're searching you out, they're searching me out on LinkedIn. They're Googling our names, and they're going to take the first thing that comes up. Okay, we want the first thing to come up to be your LinkedIn profile. We don't want it to be your Facebook profile. We don't want it to be that picture of you back in college 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago that you posted on Facebook or someone else posted on Facebook and tagged you in it, okay? So here's where we start our top 5 steps. By the way, I will save time for questions at the end. So if you have some questions as we go through here, feel free to raise your hand, or I will, if it's a question that can be saved for later, I'll ask you to hold on to that till the end of the presentation. So the first thing you want to do is under public profile, to drive it up further towards the top of a Google search, is to personalize your URL. So I'm going to be jumping back and forth here in between our PowerPoint presentation and my LinkedIn profile. All right, so what we've got here is not my homepage, but this is my LinkedIn profile, okay? And you'll see right here, there we go, let's highlight that. You want to create your own hot link, because you can use this on your website. So mine says, do you need a handout? There you go, that's okay. LinkedIn.com/in, because this is all required by LinkedIn, and then it's got my full name after it, Stephen Gustis. Think about what you want to put in there, okay? So a lot of times I go by Steve, but professionally I want to be known as Stephen. I want that to be the name that pops up. So if I am thinking about applying for a position somewhere, on my application that I put in on my resume, I'm going to have my full name, Stephen Gustis, on there. Why? Because that's what I have on my LinkedIn profile. Where do I want my employer, future possible employer, to look for information about me? The information I give him or her, right? Okay, so when they type in Stephen Gustis into Google, they might not type in Steve Gustis, because, let's face it, they're going to just look at the paper or look at the resume, whatever I've submitted to them. They're going to type that in or copy and paste it into Google. This is the first thing that I want to come up, okay? So they see my LinkedIn page. They start to get to know me, right? I've got 259 connections. I'm currently at College of DuPage. Previously, I was at these other places. All right, so what are the other steps here? Let's take a look here. So I suggest using your first name and your last name. If you have a common last name, throw your middle initial in there. If you want to use a different sort of first name, in other words, a nickname, Steve M. Gustis, that might be something that I might do if someone had a common last name to mine. Just think about that and how you want your URL to look. But then, you want to start publicizing your URL. Yes? So did everyone hear that question? The question was, if I have a maiden name, I want to connect with people who I have, who know me by a maiden name. Can I put that? Is that appropriate to put that in my URL? Absolutely. And just use it as your middle name, or, as I said, you can use it in parentheses. Okay, so the point of this is to get noticed, draw traffic to your page. So you want to start putting that URL on resumes, on applications that you send in for employment. And remembering that the objective is for people to see your profile. Okay, step number 2. Write a summary of your career. So this is one of the, LinkedIn is great, by the way. I'm not walking you through step by step how to do it because LinkedIn does a very good job. It's very easy once you get on there. And if in the future any of you is looking for help, you can contact our Career Services office, make an appointment with us if you're really struggling with it, and we'll help walk you through setting up a profile. But these 5 tips, along with LinkedIn ease of use, is really going to set you up very well, I think. So one of the first things you want to do, comes up at the top right underneath your profile, is it asks you to create a summary about yourself. So a lot of you who've created resumes, I'm assuming a lot of you have created a resume, yes? Okay, great. So this is sometimes we would call the summary of qualifications up at the top of your resume, right? We used to call it a while back, we'd ask you to put a career objective on there. We're not doing that as much anymore. Especially if you've got certain skills you want to highlight, we add that in the summary. So what you want to include in your summary is a broad range of experiences and include as many keywords and phrases as possible. All right? So let me take you to mine. All right, so I've got a short summary here, and then I list my specialties. So, career services management professional, 12 years of higher education experience in career services and volunteer management. I'm highlighting 2 big things that I've done. A lot of my experience lies in those areas. Okay. Also, extensive training in strategic planning, assessment, budget management, and advising. And then I list my specialties. Why do I list my specialties? Please. Keywords, exactly right. We want to hit upon those keywords. Why? Because employers are searching for you using automatic searches when they're looking to do some recruiting. They're looking for someone who has strategic planning. They're looking for someone who knows how to manage a budget. So budget management or, public speaking skills, that sort of thing. So you want to include those right away in your summary. So if someone Googles your name, they find your profile, they say, okay, what are their qualifications? Boom, right there in your summary, you're telling them a little bit about yourself, a very quick read.
I have a question.
Yes, sure. So the question being, yes, should I put my qualifications there for my business if I'm looking to recruit, or not recruit, excuse me, bring in clients? Not a bio. No, I would still put, it still needs to be short. Your summary needs to be short because your bio is going to go in the next section where we talk about experience. Okay, number 3. Recommendations. This is a pretty important one as well. Positive things that people say about you, it spreads virally. Why does it do that? And I don't know if I spelled virally right, but I hope I did. It looks funny to me on the screen. It's important because if someone gives you a recommendation about a previous position that you've had, it shows up on your profile so all your connections see it. Okay? The beauty of recommendations, by the way, is that you contact someone on LinkedIn, ask them for a recommendation. There's a place for you to do that. They write something about you. Say, hey, Andy, could you write a recommendation for me on that leadership workshop we did, last year? I'd really appreciate your recommendation on LinkedIn about it. Andy says, sure, I'll do that. He types it up. He sends it to me. I get to choose as the user whose page is going on whether it goes live or whether it needs some editing. So the beauty of the recommendations is that you can almost write them yourself. You're editing them yourself, really, is what it comes down to. But Andy sends me a recommendation, says a couple things about the leadership workshop he and I facilitated. I send it back to him saying, would you mind also adding a little bit about my communication style? Andy adds a little bit about my communication style. It looks good to me. I click it to accept it, and it goes live. And it appears under, the time frame that Andy and I worked together. So people could just scroll down my profile and see that. Now, I will, in all honesty, I don't have any recommendations. I need to work on that myself. But I want to show you, let me see if I can pull up Sarah's, just to show you what some of those look like and how they show up in your page. All right, so here's Sarah. See there, she used her maiden name here as well, just so you can see how that works. So the next section, we didn't talk about experience. Again, this to me is one of the more obvious ones. This is where you're pulling things from your resume to put on your profile, where you were, your most current positions if you're currently there. So Sarah, who previously worked at Rush University Medical Center, has 4 recommendations. And look, they show up right underneath her experience at Rush University. So William says, for the entire tenure of Sarah's affiliation with Rush University, she brought a collaborative and creative spirit to the Student Affairs, Student Services I'm not going to go on and read all that. But you can see, what people can write about you. And then just the fact that, one, it could go on and on. It could be shorter. It could be longer. Either way. But when employers are searching for you, think about this. Using LinkedIn is basically like they're interviewing you before they're actually calling you to come in for an interview, right? So this is like them calling your references. Because chances are the people who you're asking to write a recommendation for you are people who you would list as a reference. They're only going to say good things about you, right? Those are the same types of things that we would give in a job application or if we're submitting a resume. You're only going to give people who are going to give you a good reference. So why not ask them to be on your page here and be able to put a few words about the work that you did with them? Sometimes those recommendations can add things that you didn't even think of. Oh, I didn't realize I was such a great communicator. Thanks, Andy, for writing that in there about me. They may pull certain talents or characteristics that maybe you don't have listed explicitly here because you wanted to keep it short. You wanted that summary to be short. Your specialties, real short, quick list. But they could think of other things to put in there. Questions about recommendations?
Do you get a choice where to put it?
I think the recommendations ask you, if I was writing a recommendation for you, I think it gives you a time frame. So Steve worked with Sarah at this, between 2010 and 2013. So it would appear there wherever in your timeline then. So wherever that experience is piped into your timeline here, that's where it would appear.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What if your recommendation isn't on LinkedIn?
What if your recommendation is not on
The
LinkedIn?
person you're asking for a recommendation.
Oh.
What
I
if
don't-
they don't have LinkedIn?
What if they don't have LinkedIn? That's a good question. I don't know if that works or not. I honestly don't know the answer. I don't think you could, because how would they write it to you? I don't think they could write you a recommendation.
So if all your recommendations aren't, for example, I was in a school district, number one. Prior to that, I had my own personal business. So I can't write my own I was my boss.
Sure.
So
you would want to get recommendations from clients, prior clients of whatever your business was. That's who you would want. It doesn't always necessarily have to be a supervisor. It could be a peer.
Right.
It could be certainly if you had a business before, you want to ask prior clients, whoever those folks might be. Nancy.
Isn't there some way from your page that you can go out and ask people for recommendations?
Yeah, so the question is there some way from your page that you can go out and ask for recommendations? Yes, you can click on it. You can say, ask this person for a recommendation. Absolutely.
Scroll back to the top of that real quick.
Sure.
Okay, in the blue box up there, you have those other skills that you have.
Yes.
How are those different when people recommend you for those than the recommendations they write?
Great. That's a great question. So how are these skills listed up at the top where it always asks you, do you want to endorse Steve for this skill? And you just click on yes or click on the actual skill. Okay, so when I set up my profile, or let's say about a month and a half ago when I went in to update my profile, this was a newer feature of LinkedIn at the time. This was not originally on LinkedIn when I first got on LinkedIn. It asks you, do you want to add any skills to your profile? So bear with me. I'm going to scroll down here real fast, down to the bottom. So I added all these skills, that say I have skills and expertise in strategic planning, job search strategies, volunteer management. I work with people on writing cover. Okay, so I inputted all these skills. And when it pops up often when you go to my profile or you go to any other user's profile, just like it did up at the top there in the blue, it'll say, Steve, would you like to recommend Matt for these skills? Matt says he has these skills. If you've ever worked with Steve or Matt in this situation, go ahead and say you endorse that person. So is that different from recommendations, or how is that different from recommendations is really your question? I would say it's vastly different. Here's why. I'm telling you these are my skills, but that's all I'm telling you. And then, Paul here is endorsing me for, Microsoft Office skills, okay? Well, Paul may have worked with me and we may have worked together on Microsoft Office skills, but that's all it tells you about it, is that he thinks I do a good job at it. It doesn't actually tell you specifics of Steve and Paul worked on a PowerPoint presentation together. We created this PowerPoint presentation. We embedded video. We did all that. Those types of things could come through in a recommendation. So I think the recommendations offer a lot more detail. Also, there's a lot of discussion right now around LinkedIn and the use of these skills because, honestly, you just click on them. You could just click on them and say, oh, yeah, I endorse it. And it takes little to no effort to do that. Yes?
So you
Well, I actually have these skills. Yes, no, yes,
Let me restate my question.
sure.
These are not fixed, higher education is a fixed one, everybody can just click on and pull it into themselves as skills.
Yes.
You created the names that you got.
No, both. So the question is, did I create the names? I'm sorry, I'm repeating all the questions so I make sure we have these questions logged on the video that we're recording right now. Both. The answer is both. I created them. LinkedIn also has a list of where these skills say. They'll say.
Start with that list and then see if they've already got Java programmer. I don't have to make it up myself.
Exactly right. But you can also add your own skill. So in that same section where LinkedIn asks you about your skills and expertise, it'll say, do you want to look at skills in education? Do you want to look at skills in business? And then strategic planning might come up, goal setting might come up, those types of things. And you can click on them, but then if you also wanted to add your own, if it didn't cover a part of your expertise, you could also add that.
So if my baker friend says I'm a great Java programmer and they have no clue what that means, that obviously then they're not a real good person endorsing me, and that's is part of where the issue is with this. What do they know about that?
Right, that would be the issue. Right, that's where the challenge comes in, yes. And that's why I would advocate for recommendations more than people just clicking on here. Because again, I can go right up to the top. Well, I should come up on somebody else's profile because this is just my own skills. But you can go right up to the top, and when you click on someone else's profile, it'll say, would you like to endorse Matt for these skills? And here,
And I've seen that, and so if I
It seems
don't
cheap,
know
right?
that
It sort of
person,
cheapens
but I
it.
mean, if I know the person, but I have no idea if they have any skill in
Yeah.
that particular area.
You are under no obligation to endorse them,
Okay, fine.
ever. You can just, look, this comes up on that person's profile too. You can add it to the profile, or you can endorse them, or it can say skip. If someone endorses you, wouldn't that be a good person to ask for a recommendation? Well, I guess I would say not necessarily. You would think it would be, but unless like you have a person who maybe you don't want to endorse you, and they go ahead and endorse you anyway, you don't have to ask them. But
But if it's somebody who
truly knows your skills, truly knows your characteristics, absolutely. You see someone on there and thought, oh, I should ask them for a recommendation. I forgot they still worked at Caterpillar when we used to work together. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation and keep us going here. People always ask about it, should I have a certain number of recommendations? And we always say you should have a minimum of one recommendation for each position that you've held in the past, or each position that you're posting on LinkedIn that you've held. You can have more, but don't overdo it. Like the endorsements, that's kind of the place to overdo it, okay? If people want to endorse you, fine, let it go. But Sarah had on there 4 recommendations, I think, for people who worked with her at Rush University Medical Center, but only 2 showed at a time. So you don't want to overload it with recommendations. Again, we talked about these spreading virally, right? That person's 150 connections is going to see when they endorse you or if they give you a recommendation, because it's also going to show up on their sidebar on the right-hand side of their feed. It'll say, Steve Gustis endorses Sarah Kirby for blah, blah, blah. It'll also show up in, I think, what do we call it, the headlines, okay, which is I'll borrow a term from Facebook here, the news feed. Okay, when you first log on to LinkedIn, your news feed comes up with all the news. So-and-so got a new job, or tell someone happy work anniversary, which I just personally think is cheesy. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that they are celebrating a work anniversary. I don't know. People could put any date in there, I suppose. But in that news feed, right, it'll come up, Steve Gustis recommended Matt McNulty. And then you can click through and say, oh, Steve recommended Matt. Or if you're someone who's searching out Matt, it's going to show up that I recommended him. So you might want to look at that. Okay, number 4, beef up your connections. Okay, again, the whole point is that we want you to get noticed by employers, by your connections. So if you struggle to find connections, I guarantee you it won't be difficult once you get on here and you have that profile created. As a matter of fact, I was at a service project yesterday with my kids for Martin Luther King Day. And we were in a classroom sort of like this, and my kids were coloring Valentines for veterans and things like that, right? Well, there's this group of Girl Scouts sitting next to us, and a couple of the moms were talking. And I just happened to overhear them talking about LinkedIn, and they were talking about some social media. And I think, oh, I get people all the time, wanting to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I just don't do it. I don't know why. I'm on there, but I don't really use it. Don't be one of those people. Okay. If you're on LinkedIn, you need to be using it. You need to be getting connected to people. So because, they were saying that, for example, you may be this person too. Once you got on LinkedIn, people are going to find you. They start finding you because people start plugging in people's names to search for that they know. So it may be somebody from 20 years ago who knew only your maiden name. It may be, your neighbor across the street. You get to decide, that's the beauty of LinkedIn, who you want to be connected to. But the point is that you do want to get connected. So make those connections. Request that people connect to you when you see people who you may know. Have we all seen that on the right-hand side of your profile? Here, it shows 4 people right here. And then I can keep going. And then I can keep going. And keep going. And keep going. And maybe I see familiar faces in there who I'm not connected to. That's my opportunity to click on them and invite them to connect. This is more of a generational thing, but the professional way to do this is to send the person a message, reintroducing yourself, even if it's somebody you just saw, yesterday at the barbecue or down the street or at the service project yesterday, and, someone you saw who, oh yeah, they're going to accept my connection. Well, don't assume that. We don't want to assume that. And don't assume that they know you either. Okay? So if you maybe transferred jobs, or maybe you transition out of a job now and you're in career transition, you want to go back to someone at your previous employer and you want to connect with them on LinkedIn, please write them a 2 to 3 sentence email. It says, "Hi Jim, it's Steve Gussis. Remember, I used to work in marketing over at Caterpillar. I'd really like to get connected to you on LinkedIn. I'm looking for future job opportunities." Or don't even put it in the piece about job opportunities. I'm looking for, to make some more connections on LinkedIn. Something along those lines. Or, I've received invitations before that tell me, "Hi Steve, it's Jim. I'd like to get connected to you. This is how I keep track of my professional connections." A lot of us use this as our professional Rolodex nowadays. So it can be something short, something sweet. It doesn't have to be long, but send them a message. Please don't send the generic LinkedIn invitation.
I'm that
Yes, ma'am.
person that you were just talking about.
Which one?
The one that didn't respond, ignored the.
The invitations to connect? Okay, sure.
How do I go back and retrieve those invitations, or do I start over?
How do I go back and retrieve those invitations? If you don't do anything with them, they sit in your inbox. So let me show you. Okay, it looks like I don't have any invitations, but I do that sometimes if I'm not sure of who the person is. So the question is, how do I go back and retrieve those invitations if I held someone for a while? If you just leave them in your inbox and let them sit, and by the way, if you have your LinkedIn connected to an email address that you use, LinkedIn will send you reminders. Steve's invitation to connect is still waiting for you,
So it
right?
doesn't expire in that.
It doesn't expire. It'll sit in your inbox. And at some point, you can choose to ignore it. You can choose to accept it. And I think you can choose to delete it. I don't remember exactly the final one. But if you just let it sit in your inbox, it'll stay there for a long time. Yes?
But doesn't it make more sense to use this professionally than to use it for every Tom, Dick, and Harry you ever met in your entire life?
Absolutely. Yes. So does this make more sense to use this professionally than any person you've ever met in your life? Yes, absolutely. Use it professionally, and do not let me mix up that message today. Yes. So I'm not saying connect to everyone.
Right.
You have to be strategic about who you want to connect to.
That's, to me, part of the problem of people are like, yeah, I met you once at a dance somewhere. So what? I mean, who are you? You don't know anything.
So what? But before you say so what, let's figure out what that so what is, because maybe Tom, Dick, or Harry, or Sally works at a company or is connected to someone else who is a vice president of human resources at a company that you may be looking to get into. If they are, you want to use one of those people.
Look them up ahead of time and see
Yes.
whether or not they actually got a job or they're still the loser I thought they were at the time.
That you can do, right. So can I look him up and,
That's my
right.
concern,
Right. Can I look this person up who's inviting me to connect? Yes. So before I agree to connect with them. Yes. So you can look them up on LinkedIn. You can Google them. That's the best thing to do. Find out what comes up on Google, right?
I think I'm going to find them a job. Really, that's not the business I want to be in.
And we're really encouraging, we're really stressing that LinkedIn is not the place you ask for a job. It's a place where you get connected to people who maybe could possibly in the future, again, not hire you, but help you get connected to someone who may hire you. Because this is where employers are. And that's what users are going in thinking. So I don't know your situation, but if you're a business owner, You are going to want to have a page on LinkedIn if at some point you're looking to hire, or if you have contracted out with a recruiter, your recruiter is using LinkedIn to bring you candidates, okay? Is every person on LinkedIn trying to get a job? No. Is every person on LinkedIn trying to get connected in case maybe someday down the road they may need a position, or are some people always looking for that next opportunity? Yes, absolutely. And that's really the way to use it, is to get connected to people, find out that maybe, like you said, people from high school who may still be the loser you think they are, or maybe not, and maybe they're very successful, and maybe you say, oh, I really should be connected to this person. They won the lottery last year, and they're looking to fund a lot of philanthropic, nonprofit agencies. I have a nonprofit agency. They may care a lot about the homelessness. I'm the director of a homelessness agency. Maybe they may be someone I want to cultivate into a donor. It's not always necessarily jobs, but professional, absolutely. So no, you don't want to answer your question directly, you don't necessarily want to keep track of every person who's ever touched your life in one way or another. That's what we say Facebook is for. So the question is, how secure is, or how visible is your profile? Yeah. Okay, there's a couple of different levels on LinkedIn of visibility. You can have LinkedIn visibility to your connections only. So people who are you're connected to. So if you're connected to your boss, or people at your company.
It could be a good way to just say, politely decline and say, look, this is a private profile. That way you can keep options open, and it's just a connection.
Sure. Or let me follow that up with, there are a couple other different things where your profile is public. If you follow a company, let's say you want to follow a company page who may not even be in your industry, or if they are in your industry, doesn't matter. It will show up that you're following Caterpillar. Let's say you're in manufacturing. You want to follow Caterpillar. Okay, you follow Caterpillar online. You end up getting connected to someone at Caterpillar. Yes, that will show up. But any interactions you have with a person can all be done via private message once you're a connection and that sort of thing. Again, you can set your profile to only your connections see your news, or other people that you're connected to and that sort of thing. I believe that's almost at the most basic level of security for LinkedIn, is that only your connection. So if someone's just, let's say, Googling you, searching for you, let's say you're not connected to the boss, and the boss is looking you up on LinkedIn, they want to see if you're doing something. I mean, I don't know how many bosses really do that, but maybe they do. They want to search for your activity. If they're not connected to you, they can't see much. They can see only what you allow on your profile to be publicly seen. Sure. And what do you do if you get a request from them, right? Exactly. What do you do if you get a request from that boss or that coworker, that person? I would just say, I use this for professional networking, or I use this for personal networking, and the beauty of LinkedIn is that you can also just click ignore when they send you that invitation.
I've had this happen, so it's like,
okay. And then you've been confronted with it?
The boss that was not so great was the one that was like trying to network with me, and I didn't want to have anything to do with that, so I just kind of like ignored it.
Yeah, but he was persistent.
And I kind of wonder how much that plays into what he sees on the other end when you decline.
I don't think the user sees anything when they get ignored. You know what? Sometimes it shows up. I think on my profile, I just noticed this yesterday, it was new to me. But I had sent, I think, about 15 invitations to people to connect within the last maybe 2 months, and it said 10 invitations still awaiting response or something like that. So I don't see if they ignore me. If you click ignore, I mean physically, I don't think you actually see that. So. Groups, join groups, research companies. Okay. The last kind of tip that I have for you is to join groups, be able to research companies. So I'm going to get to your question in a minute. You want to, again, this is all about being visible. So you want to comment in a group discussion. It'll help make you a more visible user. There are groups on LinkedIn. I mean, there's thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of groups. So I'm in groups for career service professionals. I'm in group for nonprofit professionals. I'm in groups for internships in the Chicagoland area all those different types of groups. If you like pets, there's groups out there for pets. If you're professional in manufacturing, there's groups out there for that. Join groups. They're some of the best ways that you can get connected to other people in your field and outside of your field. For example, Naperville has one that's called the Naperville Networking Club. Okay? Doesn't matter who you are, you can get in there. You have to send a quick message to the groups whoever the group facilitator is, the group, whoever holds the account basically, and they send you an approval message, and they welcome you into the group. Chicagoland has one for the whole Chicagoland. There's a LinkedIn networking group where there's literally thousands of people on there. It gives you more exposure. It gives you, if you're looking to start a business, it gives your business a little bit more exposure too, to come in and be part of a group. But you can't just be part of the group. You have to be active in the group so that other people get to know who you are a little bit as a professional. Because again, keep in mind, part of LinkedIn is to build out those connections for whatever reason, whether it's job seeking, whether you're looking to build connections to build a future business, whether you're looking to recruit clients for a future business. All right. Your question was, can I seek out people who work at a certain company, right? Okay. So you can use the Companies tab to search to connect and follow companies where you may be interested in finding a position. Now, I put that up there just in terms of the job seeking. But you can also look at your own list of connections to see who might be connected at blank company. So if I click on the Companies tab, I can search companies. Okay? And I'm going to search for, I just like to use this one as an example because it's a good one. They're not doing great financially, but they have a lot of people employed there. So let me see. Sorry, I just have to think through this. So here's Navistar, the company page for Navistar, okay? So this is a page, if you're looking to get hired at an organization, you would follow this page because they're probably going to put things, here you go, Navistar is hiring, internal audit and SOX compliance manager in Lisle. Great. So you're looking, they have positions available there. I can't remember. I know you can search for how you're, oh, here we go, right here. Look at that. How am I connected to Navistar? I've got 51 second-degree connections. I don't have any first connections. In other words, no one out of my 259 connections work at Navistar. However, out of my 259 connections, they have 51 second-degree connections. So they know 51 people who work at Navistar. Does that make sense? Okay, good. All right, so this is how you can go to that. And then, so here we can see all. And there we go. It lists who those second connections are. And then it tells me who's my shared connections. So I don't know Tanya Thompson, but she knows Carol Fisher, who is one of my direct connections. So if I'm looking to get connected to Tanya, then I'm going to send a message to Carol, okay? I'm going to say, Carol, I'm looking to get connected. I'm looking for someone at Navistar to come present at one of our mock interview workshops in the future. Tanya let's pretend like she works in HR. Tanya works in HR, and she'd be as a hiring manager, she'd be a great person to work with our students, our community residents, on telling them about tips for interviewing. We want to bring her in for a mock interview panel. Carol says, sure, Steve, I'll connect you. Writes a little email introduction connecting the both of us. Boom. Then all of a sudden, Tanya and I get connected, okay, on LinkedIn. That's a way to use it. That's a way to search out, to, I think, answer your question, to search out people who might work at a specific company. Figure out how you get connected there. That is a great step in the job search. That is one of the true values of LinkedIn, in my opinion, is finding out where those connections are that you have. All right. So the other thing, companies are posting open positions on LinkedIn. There's a jobs tab on LinkedIn that you want to connect to as well, okay? And you can plug in company names and find out what types of positions are posted there for Target or Caterpillar or whomever we're talking about. And then that was the advanced, using the advanced search function to find connection at one of those hiring companies. You don't even need to use the advanced section. You saw it came up when I clicked on companies up in the right-hand corner. People you may know, okay? Okay, so we're getting down to the end of our presentation here. LinkedIn is a tool. Just remember that. It's not the end-all, the be-all, but it's one of the tools in your job search toolbox, okay? It's the new version of pounding the pavement. How many of you have been to job fairs, career fairs, or companies, you've gone in to try to submit a resume and they say, here's our website, go apply online, okay? That's exactly what they say. They'll probably be telling you that at our career fair on February 2nd too, because that is how companies are accepting applications nowadays. That's how they're accepting resumes, okay? Do that, submit your resume online, but have your LinkedIn profile part of your resume. Have that URL on there. It's perfectly acceptable to do that. As we said, it's a great way to become connected professionally and to research a company, but it's not a place to ask for a job, okay? for all the reasons we talked about earlier, okay? You don't want to be seen coming across just asking for a job. You don't want to be that person because remember what I said about your recommendations. They spread virally, right? People are going to know, and it's going to spread virally that you're out searching for a position. If you're typing a message to people or an invitation to someone or, you know, that sort of thing, you're trying to get connected. What's going to happen is people are going to see on your profile that you're trying to get connected in a whole lot of different places, and they're going to pick up on that right away. Like, oh, this person's just, you know, pining for a job or something like that. You got to be methodical about how you do it, okay? You got to do it steps at a time. Increase your summary, or you're updating your summary, or updating your experience, that sort. That's okay to go ahead and do all that at one time. That's fine. Try to, you know, start building your connections. Think of it as a process. You're building slowly. LinkedIn is, however, a great way to brag about yourself because, as I said earlier, this is often your first interview. Something I didn't address, but I will talk about real quick, is that a lot of times people say, what about a picture? Should I put a picture on there? Should I not put a picture on there? What's the right answer? Yes. Everything on LinkedIn says yes, absolutely, and everyone else says yes, right? It's a great way to network, too. It's the best way to network, in my opinion, professionally. I've got two videos I want to show you real quick, just to talk about. One talks about connections, and one talks about job seeking using social media.
It seems like everyone is a member of LinkedIn these days. You've got an online profile that represents your professional experience, education, and recommendations, and you have connections to people that you know and trust. You get the emails, but now what? We're here to show you that LinkedIn isn't about building connections. It's about helping you be more productive. Here's one way to think about it. To accomplish a goal, we need to see the path that will get us there. Often, our people networks can point us in the right direction, but it's too hard to see who knows whom. The networks are often hidden from view. It's like trying to drive to a destination without maps or signs. Intersections feel lonely and confusing. LinkedIn solves this problem by making professional connections visible. When you have a professional need in your daily life, LinkedIn helps make the path visible so you can ask the right questions and make the right decisions. Here's how it works. Meet Lori. She owns a small engineering firm and has been a long-time LinkedIn member. She has a lot of connections, but never knew what was possible. Recently, she closed a few big deals, her business changed, and her to-do list grew. She needed to find a new ad agency and raise some funding. Lori's friend suggested taking another look at LinkedIn. This time, she didn't just see a group of connections, but a network that's alive and ready to help. Lori decided to use her network to get things done. Lori's brand needs a very particular kind of ad agency. Instead of searching the web or browsing the yellow pages, she reached out to connections on LinkedIn whom she knew would have solid feedback on ad agencies. Within days, her network had helped her find 3 contacts at trusted agencies. She was ready to move on. To keep her business growing, she needed funding, but didn't know where to begin. So, she did an advanced search for investors who specialize in her kind of company and found that trusted investors were in her network. All she needed was an introduction from her connections. Her network connected her to the right people and gave her a chance to shine. For the first time, Lori saw LinkedIn differently. Instead of just being a group of connections, now her network is alive and easy to navigate, especially in accomplishing goals. Lori is just one of millions of connections on LinkedIn. No matter what your profession, people, knowledge, and opportunities are at your fingertips. Get started or give your network another look at LinkedIn.com.
All right, one more I want to show you.
With millions of people on social networking sites like Facebook, the ways those sites can be of use is growing. And if you use them to help you find a job, you're part of the new generation of job hunters who realize things have changed. A Gatineau author lays out the new reality of using tech to help find a job.
And on your LinkedIn profile, there's a link out to your blog.
Correct.
So that's a great thing.
It really helped to get me out of, I'm sitting in front of my computer looking at job boards in a bubble, to actually talking to people and getting out there a little bit more, which I thought was really great and helped keep my sanity.
Greg Quirk found a job. His mentor in the job hunt was David Perry, veteran recruiter, veteran author and speaker about how to find a job using some very bold tactics. His just-released book is an update, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters, version 3.0. He says using the web has become crucial. Job hunters have to be there because that's where employers are looking.
If we can't find you, you don't exist. Period. So how do you as an employer grow and find exactly the exact talent you need? Well, you use the technology. You'll go and do a keyword search through Google or Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook.
Quirk had YouTube postings, plus his blog, plus he took his traditional 3 or 4 page resume and boiled it down to 1 page full of color graphics and aggressive wording on his skills.
When I was using my traditional resume for 6 or 7 months, I think I had 2 or 3 interviews in that whole time. With the Guerrilla resume and using some of the other tactics, I had more than a dozen interviews in 2 or 3 months.
Michelle Eisman is a career coach who works with a volunteer group that helps unemployed tech workers. She says this book nails the new reality.
Not only can I solve the problem, I can do it cost effectively and better than anybody else. That's what job hunting is all about. That's what David talks about.
Ottawa may be a very tech-savvy community with a lot of well-educated people, but both Eisman and Perry say it's surprising how many people still don't get it, that you can market yourself and hunt for a job using the online tools.
This is really cool technology. It launched a week and a half ago.
This site puts all of your online profiles in one place. It's called About.me. Perry's book is full of other examples. He talks about websites like ZoomInfo, a database of professionals, and LinkedIn, where job hunters need to create a strong profile.
LinkedIn nowadays is your first interview. You're not there, not physically, but your presence is. So they're going to look over your profile and decide, do I want to meet them or not?
Twit Job Search and Twitter Grader will guide you to who's talking about jobs you might be interested in. Branch Out uses the Facebook contacts. The technology can help you search for a job and for employers to search for you. And if you're not there,
you don't get the call. You don't get the call, you don't get the job. You're going to be looking for a long, long time. And that's why people are looking for so long, because they're not using these simple tools. And it takes, maybe half a day to slow down and look at this stuff and figure out what you're going to do with it. It's not hard. It's really not hard.
We've got about 5 minutes for questions. We passed out an evaluation. If you'd be so kind to fill that out as well. Drop it off at the table outside in the back when you're done. But I'd like to entertain any questions you have for 5 minutes. Great question. What should the picture look like? It should be professional for whatever you consider to be professional. I'll tell you what, I cringe when I see pictures of people that I know, I can tell, even if they've just cropped out themselves, but I know it's taken during the summer because they're wearing a tank top, or women who wear dresses without sleeves, and it's their profile picture. This is just me personally. I tend to be like, ugh, I wish you wouldn't have used that one as your profile picture, right? I think you want to maintain a certain sense of professionalism. Now, if we're talking, a CNC machinist that who works in manufacturing, that may be a little different. I mean, that their dress may be a little bit different in their profile. But I would say professional dress for whatever your industry is, or who you think you're going to have looking at your profile. I would always err on the side of caution of being more dressed up than not. I mean, I would say that to anybody for coming to the career fair or coming to any relay or going to an interview. Always err on the side of put a suit on. That at your most basic level. Anything different that you would have to add for that, Sarah?
No.
Okay.
I think, read your industry appropriately, and I would say the same thing.
Shoulders up, like I think you have yours, sir.
Oh, I have terrible posture. The picture. Oh, I thought you meant like slouching like that. Yeah, a headshot is always. I think the headshot is probably best. That's just my recommendation, but because that's what they can see. Yeah, headshot is always probably best. And really, you don't want a gargantuan picture there of yourself anyway. You don't want to draw it out. So you can edit your name. Yeah, you can edit your name. In the URL? Yeah. It's no problem. The edit feature under here. When you go to your profile, click Edit Profile. Everything comes up. Oops. I mean, here, I can change my name right here and clicking on this little pencil. I can change anything. Here you go, edit right there by the URL. So absolutely, they make it very easy, really. I know people, you hear this all the time, it's so user-friendly about everything. I really feel LinkedIn is very user-friendly. Yes, ma'am. So the question is, what if you have 2 professions, you have 2 separate lists of people or connections, is that right?
Like
And do you want to keep them separate? I would say you kind of address all of those in your skill section, in your experience, and keep it under one. I wouldn't say keep two separate profiles for yourself. That's just going to confuse people when you apply at the career fair at a culinary and they end up finding your business background. Use it as a value. Use that as added value to your skill set. Whether you're going for, let's say, a culinary position and you have an MBA in your background or whatever that is, highlight those skills and how you could use them in the culinary industry. And if you need help with that, talk to our career services office. We can help you do that. Okay? You're welcome.